I strongly dislike Christian movies. Now, that may come as a bit of a surprise to some of you who know me personally. As you know, I am a Christian. So you would think that I would be all over Christian movies, and I would be like, oh, these are so great, these are so incredibly amazing. And as much as I hate to say it, Christian movies fail on most of their fronts nowadays. But without further ado, I would like to talk to you guys about my problem with Christian films, Christian filmmaking, and how we can make it better. Story. Every single movie or TV show has to have story. If you want people to keep watching, you need to have characters, you need to have a goal that characters can achieve, and you need to have a premise or a theme behind why your characters are doing what they're doing. Story is one of the areas where I feel like Christian filmmaking suffers the greatest right now, because there's not really been very many inventive stories, specifically Christian stories recently that have been coming out in theaters. Now that is, by the way, not to say that all Christian movies are bad and completely terrible. Most of them are worth watching. But when it comes to story, Christian movies are almost treated like Hallmark movies, if I'm gonna be completely honest. They have very, very predictable character decisions. They have very, very predictable plot twists, and they generally know their audience and do not seek to please anybody outside of their audience. And that bothers me, because as a Christian, I walk into the theater, right? The movie is marketed to me. It's marketed as a Christian film. I am aware of the studios that make Christian films. And it feels like Christian studios are making movies that they know their audience will enjoy, and that they do not seek to please anybody other than their target audience, which I have a problem with personally. As Christians, we are supposed to be reaching out to people. We are supposed to be ministering to people. We are supposed to be showing people the love of Jesus and showing people that we care about them and that we love them. Well, how is a movie about okay, I'm gonna give you a perfect template example of a Christian film that could theoretically come out. Atheist guy meets and falls in love with Christian girl, becomes a Christian by the end of the movie, because it's the end of the movie. We need him to become a Christian by the end of the movie to satisfy the audience. As a Christian, I would look at that story and potentially go, oh, that's nice, that's cool, whatever. But as a non-Christian, I would potentially look at that, and most likely due to poor writing, most likely due to a lack of real characters making sense in their choices, I would probably look at that movie and say, this is stupid and unrealistic. Now, I'm not saying that movies need to follow realism to a 100% T, but a lot of Christian movies that I've seen recently is almost quite literally like, character makes decision because the story needs to move forward, and it doesn't give any explanation. It doesn't typically, at least, use any real convicting writing, and every Christian movie, not every Christian movie, but most Christian movies that have come out recently, even if they are slightly different stories about slightly different things, they all feel the same. And that is because, in my opinion, at least, rather than trying to reach new people, to reach non-Christians with their films, Christian filmmakers have realized and are okay with, oh, our movie or our TV show makes money. And I'm going to cover that a little bit more in a later section of this video, but it makes me sad that less risks are being taken, and frankly, less non-believers are turning out to these movies and watching these shows. And when they do watch them, they're gonna leave a bad review because they feel that, you know, oh, they've been targeted, they're not welcome, they're not included. And that brings me to now, I have really been thinking about and studying cinematography a lot in the last year, I'd say. And something that I've noticed about Christian films is they barely have it. Now, this is obviously not true across the board. Angel Studios in particular has put out some really cinematically just beautiful films. I don't know if y'all have seen it or not, but Homestead, that is still in theaters right now, is literally so colorful. It's so bright. Characters are placed on the scene so well. Sets are so well lit. I really enjoyed the cinematography of Homestead. Sure, it's not gonna be Oppenheimer levels of cinematography, but Angel Studios doesn't have the same budget as Oppenheimer or as a large studio production. When it comes to cinematography, if people are bored at what they're looking at, what makes you think they're going to truly engage and feel themselves drawn into the story? If you can use the story to have a compelling reason for people to watch, and you can use the cinematography to give a compelling reason for people to focus in and look at the screen, then you should have a successful movie, right? You should have a movie that, if your story makes sense and your characters are making rational, reasonable decisions that don't just further the story, that align with Christian values but also make sense from a story perspective, then you would think you would have the perfect movie, right? That brings me to my last segment. If you don't get people to the respective platform to watch your Christian movie or Christian TV show, you don't make money. And as much as Christians, we should not be hyper fixated on money, but you can't just throw some sticks and stones together and have a movie. You have to pay actors, you have to pay crew, you have to pay staff with relation to the movie. You have to pay artists. Making movies is expensive. Theater distribution is also something I've been studying a little bit more in the last 6 months than I previously had. And it costs a lot of money to put movies in theaters. It costs a lot more than you would think. You may think, oh, the theater gets the movie for free. No, that's not how it works. It costs money to do anything theatrical, or it costs money to have and maintain a streaming service or a streaming platform. It just costs money to make films, and it costs money to reach people. It's sad that it costs money to reach people, but it is the reality, that it is going to cost a lot of money if you want to make a Christian film and have it seen by as many eyes as possible. A big thing that Christian filmmaking relies on for people theatrically seeing their movies is word of mouth. I do not see advertisements for any of these movies. I hear a friend or I hear somebody at church recommending, saying, oh man, the best Christmas pageant ever was such a great movie, or oh man, Homestead was such a great movie. Love the show. I'm going to go off on a little side tangent for a minute, because Homestead, the show, infuriates me. The concept of putting a TV show pilot in theaters and marketing it as a movie. That's the thing. They marketed it as a movie. I felt very upset at the end of the movie when the movie basically told me, if you want to watch the rest of this story, because the story barely, I'm not going to get into spoilers, but the story barely resolves at the end. It resolves just enough to where if you didn't go watch the show, that would be okay, but it barely resolves, right? They essentially say, you want to watch the rest of this story that you just paid theatrical prices to see? Well, pay a little bit more money and then get access to the first episode. What? As a consumer, and I really, really hope Angel Studios is watching this, they probably aren't, but if somebody from your company happens to be watching this, that's infuriating. To have a story that is incomplete. Let's just get real here. The story of Homestead by the end of the almost 2-hour-long movie is not complete. And they say, pay us a little bit more money. That's very, very aggravating, and that is something that I would honestly say I've thought about every single day since seeing that movie, is I'm like, man, I don't know how to feel about that. Because on one hand, Homestead was a cinematically great movie. It was beautiful. It was so well lit. Same thing with The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, by the way. That movie needs to get a little bit more praise. That was a good example of Christian filmmaking done right. I would argue more so than Homestead. Even if it wasn't cinematically quite as impressive, The Best Christmas Pageant Ever was a better way to reach people. Because guess what? Yes, it doesn't quite as much have the reach of a not super Christian looking movie, but The Best Christmas Pageant Ever actually literally in the story gave us a look at non-Christians discovering Christianity. And that is really, really good, and we need more of that. We need less of join our subscription service so that you can access the first episode or the first 2 episodes of this show that isn't even done production yet. The final point that I want to make is that Christian films and TV shows are not very accessible. When it comes to streaming services, I think we can all agree we don't want to have another streaming service. Well, if you want to watch Christian movies and TV shows, you need to have another streaming service. That is basically what a lot of Christian media companies have come to. They have said, you need to have a streaming service. Despite the fact that this really, really cool platform exists that's free, that puts advertisements on your videos, to be fair, but that once you reach a not ridiculous threshold, you start earning money from making videos on that platform. What's the name? I'm sure it'll come to me eventually. I'm not saying that every single piece of Christian filmmaking and Christian TV show should be available on YouTube, but guys, money can be made off of YouTube. I am aware that there are probably other reasons to do with copywriting and fair use and whatnot why you are not putting things on YouTube, but I legitimately would watch more Christian films and more Christian TV shows if they were available on YouTube. But they're not. They're locked behind a paywall that it is yet another subscription service that you have to pay for. Again, this is not the case with every single Christian film and every single Christian TV show, but a large percentage of the, I would argue, more mainstream Christian shows and Christian movies are locked behind a paywall and aren't very accessible to the general public, to the people who would not be actively looking for that subscription service. I want to end this video by saying, I want Christian films to succeed. I want Christian TV shows to succeed. I think that they're important and that we need more of them, but most importantly, that we need to do better. We need to have stories that make more sense, and honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, we need to be trying to reach non-believers more. We need to take a risk. We don't need to constantly have formulaic stories that you can immediately predict the plot twist, that you can immediately tell different characters. I would like to say, I think Angel Studios has done a better job than pretty much every other Christian media company in the past at reaching new people. But we have to do better. We have to push the envelope more. If you are going to reach somebody that wouldn't necessarily watch your film, you don't trick them into watching your film. You tell them, you give them hints that this is a Christian story, but it is going to be a story that makes sense, a story that cinematically looks good, and a story that ultimately does have Christian values and does have Christian messaging, but that would be watchable and wouldn't be felt like someone was being pandered to if they were in the audience watching your movie and happened to be a non-believer. Angel Studios, Kendrick Brothers, if any of you happen to be watching this, I want you to succeed. I want you to do well. I appreciate what you're doing. I don't want to seem like I'm saying, all of you are awful, all of you need to stop what you're doing, okay? You are doing good, but I believe that you can do better. I believe that you can release a part 1 and a part 2. I'm gonna go back to Homestead for just a second, but if I knew going into watching Homestead that there was going to be a Homestead part 1 and a Homestead part 2, and it was 2.5 hour long movies, I'd be perfectly fine with that, because you're marketing it as part 1. I felt taken advantage of that it is all of a sudden a TV show at the end, and that you have to pay more money to access the TV show. I want the best for you, Christian media companies. Who knows, I may or may not be writing something currently that my audience may figure out more about in the next upcoming months, but I want the absolute best. I want stories to be better, and most importantly, I want more people to be reached by Christian filmmaking, and I don't currently think that is happening, and I think that we can do a whole lot better of a job. The Best Christmas Pageant Ever was an excellent step. It was a great movie, but I think we can do even better moving forward. So thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. I'm going to be making more videos like this, more videos talking about this. I stream usually weekly. I have a thing called Disagreement Day where we basically just go live and then talk with you guys about different movies, talk with you guys about different opinions. I'm happy to talk Christian filmmaking with you if you want to. So swing by a Disagreement Day stream. I usually post a day beforehand to let you guys know that they're happening. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.